Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with a slightly longer video, mostly because I wanted to show all these products first because I'm only concentrating on one of them and this release is amazing and I love it. I love it. This is the Hummingbirds collection for Spellbinders by my friend Bibi Cameron. She did that amazing butterfly collection. Was that last year? I did a video making a bunch of cards with it. I'll have that linked at the end of this one because that collection was amazing. This one, chef's kiss. Seriously. So this first set, this is the delicate floral Hummingbirds wafer die set. The big wafer die is 5x7. It's enormous. It is beautiful. That's what I'll be concentrating on later on to make my card. And yeah, they're gorgeous. This next set, this is the Hummingbird and Lily die set. All of this was sent to me. I didn't have to feature this or do any of this. I just, like I said, this set of products just, oh man. I wanted to do an even longer video and use every single set. Life is chaotic. So I'll just show you guys all the things. So this one makes beautiful lilies. It's got this hummingbird and a cloud, kind of edger wafer die. There's a little dragonfly and a little butterfly in there and little buds. And it's just another just beautiful, wafer die set. So we've got that one. And then the next one, I'm just trying to think what did I grab next? I think it's the Hummingbird card. Yes. Oh, this one. This is the Hummingbird card creator. This makes a hummingbird shaped card. Seriously. What the heck? When I saw it, I was like, no way. Really? I never in a million years would have thought of this. So this also, I measured because I was like, this is 5x7. It is. It makes a 5x7 hummingbird shaped card. How cool is that? Seriously. So you got all the dies to create the actual card base. You could also just create a 5x7 card and stick this on it. It'll take up the whole card. And there's little bits of greenery. There's a little stamp set that coordinates with everything. It's the Hummingbird sentiments. Although pretty much all of the sentiments are any occasion, any use, they're not specifically hummingbird, you know what I mean? So I got that. And then this one, this is the pop-up hummingbird wafer die set. This one is neat. And I'm kind of not surprised that Bibi has a wafer die like this. She does things like this in a lot of her cards. And yeah, it's kind of neat. So you got the hummingbird shapes and then the floral that can go on in the inside of your cards. So got that one. And then there's the Hummingbird Build a Scene stamp set with the little coordinating wafer dies. And then last but certainly not least is the Hummingbird Textures stencil. The stencil I was also super excited about because I was like, ooh, this is just a good one to have to add those little just kind of sketchy bits, behind images, whether it's used with this or just used with anything, really. I like it. I like that type of kind of pattern and texture, and you've got, several to choose from with the stencil. So that is the collection in a nutshell. I will have links to all of it, and then of course I'll have links to everything I used. So like I said, I went with the delicate floral Hummingbirds etched die set, and I'm going to make 5x7 cards. I have the new Tim Holtz Rotary trimmer. I literally I took it out of the box before I started filming. So far so good, but I've cut with it however many times I cut in this video. So 4 times. So I have no opinion at the moment really to give. So far so good. I like it. I literally just got it. So I'm not doing a review or anything. I cut 2 sheets of Simon's heavyweight cardstock. So again, a thumbs up to the trimmer for that because it cut through them like butter. Like all my other trimmers, I cannot cut more than 1 sheet of Simon's 120-pound cardstock. So bonus. Anyway, I cut them to 7 inches by 10 inches. And then I scored them at 5. So these are 5x7 cards. And to do ones specifically like this, I would recommend a heavier weight cardstock. It'll just give more strength to the front panel because I am going to die cut right out of it. However, you could also just make these cards and adhere like the die cut pieces on top. The caveat to this is to do this like see-through thing I'm doing here, you need a big die cutting machine. This is Spellbinders Platinum die cut machine because I'm die cutting into the card base, and the way I need to run it through, I need my big plates for this. However, this wafer die does fit on standard cutting plates, and I'll show that in a minute. And then when I put just the inner portion, I didn't use the frame, I'll use that in a second, of this big wafer die. So I centered it onto the front of my 5x7 card. I put the cutting plate on top, and I just ended the cutting plate where the score line is, mostly just to prevent the pressure of the machine pressing any, because my actual cutting plate is like pretty rough because I use my cutting plates until there's nothing left. So I didn't want to press that into what will be the inside of the card. So I die cut this delicate floral hummingbird wafer die from what will be the card front. So if you wanted to just use the wafer die but not do like the whole like kind of window option I just showed there, this will fit on your standard size cutting plates. But yeah, it's just, again, I can't get over like just the detail. It's like, I love when people come up with all these things for me to use and create with, because I don't come up with these sorts of things. I just make the cards with them. So I die cut that. As you can see, I've got this like big window basically in what will be my card front. I did that twice because I thought, again, while I got everything out, why not do more than one card? So then I lined up the kind of outline to this wafer die, and they fit together just kind of perfectly. And then I just used Post-it tape to hold everything in place. And then I'm going to die cut these separate panels. And that's what I was saying, that you could just do this and then adhere it to a card front. You'd be good to go. You know, like you don't have to do the whole window thing if you don't have a big die cut machine, etc. So I did all my die cutting. I die cut the whole background, and then there's all the little wafer dies in the set that die cut all the pieces to create the hummingbirds and the blooms. And you could skip all this ink blending and just die cut it from solid color cardstock. I was also thinking, I was like, ooh, these would look really gorgeous if you wanted to use like markers, etc. to color everything. That would look amazing too. I decided to do very simple inking on all of these because it's going to give it some more depth and dimension. But this is like the least amount of effort other than just using straight up color cardstock. So I used my paper Pouncers and a bunch of different Simon Says Stamp positively saturated inks for these. And I'm working on my sticky mats. I did the main panel first with greens. I did a lighter green and a medium green. So that was Sprout and Fairway inks. Just pounce that all over the place. These inks will smooth out more as they dry as well. And then after I did the backgrounds, I'm going to start doing all the pieces. And with all of these, with the leaves, the leaf wafer die in this set, die cuts 2 at a time. You need 9 for one card panel. I just thought I would share that. I sat and I counted out the piece. I was like, how many do I need to die cut? So that's what I did. So same thing. I stuck into my sticky mat and I pounced on the inks. I used the same green inks, and then I went one shade even darker and I pulled in Field. So I used Sprout, Fairway, and Field to, again, give the leaves a little bit more depth, a little bit more extra. And this time, I talked about this in a recent video, how it's like I have more than one stick and stamp mat, and I don't use, usually more than one at a time, and I will literally make my life more difficult. It's like, why don't I have enough, as they're sitting in front of my face? Anyway, I used multiples this time. This one I have used a lot to the point where there's not really much stick left on it. I'm going to test this out though, spraying it with a bit of pixie spray and just seeing if I can, keep going with it. And again, I've mentioned this. When I use them like this to add inks, etc., I take my stick and stamp mats when I'm done. I rinse them under the sink, just rinse them with water, and I let them air dry, and they're good to go. And the stick, comes back, all of it. This one, like I said, I have used it a lot to the point where it's kind of on its last legs. Hence me constantly having to like repress down all the pieces. Anyway, all the floral bits, the large floral pieces, you need 3 of each. And then the buds, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You need 6 of them. And I did pinks and oranges on these pieces because I had in my head, I wanted to do like blues and purples on the hummingbirds. So I was like, ooh, I'll do the florals in pinks and oranges, like kind of bring out almost the entire like rainbow really in the end. So same thing, just used my Pouncers and kind of went lightest to darkest and just slapped on the ink. Quick and easy. This is sped up in editing, but even then, honestly, this was the fastest element of all of this. Like, I showed Chris the cards when they were done. He's like, wow, you did a lot of inking. Like, that was really time consuming. And I'm like, honestly, the inking was the least time consuming part. It was all the die cutting. And even that, it wasn't that difficult. It was more just me having to figure out for the very first time, like, how many pieces do I need of all the things? So these little flowers, there's like, I think 3 of the little wafer dies in the set. I just die cut a bunch. These are the only thing that you can kind of do whatever with. Everything else has outlines, has a place to go in the background. These are just little extras. So I just die cut a bunch of them so that, because I'll just kind of sprinkle those throughout the background when I'm done. And then for the hummingbirds, same thing. Die cut all the pieces, pulled out a new stick and stamp mat. This is like brand new, you know, super fresh, and love it. All the pieces just stick wonderfully. So stuck all the pieces for the hummingbirds onto here. And for their beaks, I'm using yellow. So I just used some citrine ink and pounce that into there. And then for the rest of the hummingbirds, I'm doing like, yeah, bluey purple. So I started with Cadet, just a medium blue color, and added that to what will be the heads, the tails, and added just a little bit of that to the bodies. And then I'm going to use a variety of purples because I was just having fun. I started with Heather, which is a very kind of cool purple, just a light, cool purple. And then I went in with Violet, which is just a shade darker. Just pounce that all over the wings and the bodies. And then I went in with the more like pinky, like warm purples, which is lilac, orchid, and amethyst. And same thing, just added them until all of these die cut pieces were saturated with color. And yeah, as it was all coming together and like all the colors, and I was just like, this is so much fun. So got all the color on to all of these pieces. Off camera, took my stick and stamp mats, took them to the sink, rinsed off the ink. Some of the inks will stain, whatever. And then it's just a matter of assembling. And honestly, assembling these were super easy because it's really obvious where all the pieces go. They're also, the background itself is also etched, everything. So it's like, I just started with the leaves. It's like, just pick a spot and go somewhere. I think the leaves are the easiest. And then the little stamens for the large flowers, those I die cut from just scraps of Simon's matte gold cardstock. This is why I say I always keep like every little piece of my specialty papers, you know, glitter papers, metallic papers, etc., because they come in handy for so many things, like little die cuts like this. So I adhered those, and then I assembled the large flowers, and again, just some liquid glue. Stuck on one, like the bottom part of the flower, and then stuck on the top part of the flower. It was simple, really. This is one of those things where it's like, I just kind of zone out. I had, I think, YouTube videos going or Netflix, whatever, and just stuck things into place. So added all the little buds, everything. I did the hummingbirds the very last. There's only like the tiniest spot here and there, and it's not even because it was designed that way. It was more just I didn't adhere things like perfectly lined up. The only thing that you layer on top, like you need to pay attention, is the hummingbird bodies. So you put the bottom tail portion on first. The wings, doesn't matter, they just butt up next to it, but I stuck the wings on first, and then the body adheres on top of that, then the beak piece, and then the little top part for the head, and that's it. The eyes I left off because they were tiny little pieces, and I was like, oh, I should just die cut, some black scraps of cardstock, etc. And then I was like, oh no, I'm just going to add bling for the eyes and we'll be done with it, because why not, So either one will work. So after I got all of it assembled, I just put dabs of glue randomly all over the background to adhere those little tiny flowers. And there's also a little wafer die in the set that cuts out 2 circles, which at first I thought was for the eyes for the hummingbird. And I was like, these are really big. And I was like, no, they're the flower centers. So same thing. You could die cut them, or you could just use bling, little pearls. That would look gorgeous too. But since I was doing all the die cutting, I used more scraps of the matte gold cardstock and die cut the flower centers from that too, just to tie it all together. Like I've got the little stamens of the flowers, the little flower centers are going to be matte gold, and my sentiment is also going to be matte gold, so it just brings it all together. So this is where like a little embellishment wand, I'm using my Trinity Stamps pickup stick, Studio Katia ones, Simon Says Stamp House one now, like tons of companies come in really handy with small die cut pieces, because I just pick it up with the little waxy end, press that into the adhesive, good to go. So got everything adhered. And then for their eyes, I was going to use like actual, little rhinestones or whatever. But when I was digging through my massive multiple lifetime stash, I have these black dots embellishments from Trinity. And they're just flat. Perfect. So stuck little dabs of glue there, stuck those into place. These panels are technically complete, but of course I'm going to add shimmer. I was thinking about adding like a bunch of splatter. That would look amazing too. It really would. But I was like, no, let's do shimmer. So I grabbed my flour sack cloth first, just to protect my work surface. Because again, these are 5x7 pieces. So they're quite large, and it was just easier to do everything all at once. And then I've got a little mini Mr. bottle from Ranger. I've shown this in other videos. This has just distilled water in it and perfect pearl powder. There's no ratio. I just scoop a bit of powder in there, shake it up, and it's like, that looks pretty. It's good. Again, no, it just is. It just works. It's perfect. I use this either just to splatter or to spray things to get a shimmery background. Either one works. Biggest thing to remember, you need to shake it up really well, because the powder will separate and settle at the bottom of the container. So shake it up really, 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 really well until there's nothing, no solid bits sitting in the bottom of the spray bottle. And then I hold this quite high, and the mini mister really does just a nice mist. And I just heavily misted this. And because I use the Pawsitively saturated inks, they are water reactive. So not only am I going to get shimmer, but I am going to get those little like splattery effects here and there from the larger little bits. And the color changes a tiny bit as well. And it just, I'll show at the end with my flashlight, because it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Anyway, now to make these into trifold cards. You could totally skip this step. It isn't necessary, but I was just having fun with it. So the first thing I did was I stamped sentiments onto what will be the inside of these cards from that little Hummingbird sentiments set. And I used Orchid ink for those. So I just stamped those onto the insides. And for my trifold element, I'm going to use Vellum. You could use cardstock, or you could skip it all together, like I said. But I'm going to use Vellum. And I have this is Tonic's heavyweight Vellum. I think they call it vintage white. I'll have a link to it. This is a little bit heavier weight than other Vellums. This is like a 55-pound Vellum. I think Simon Says Stamps is 40 or 45. It's close. Simon's would work as well. You could use any Vellum technically. It will just, it'll just be a little more flimsy, which is what I didn't want for these cards, but it would look pretty, like the gold vellum, the Tonic gold vellum that I've been raving about, that love. I almost used that, but I wanted a bit more weight, so that's why I went with this white vellum. So anyway, I cut the vellum down to 7 inches by 5.5 inches, and then I'm scoring it at 5 inches. So I'm going to have a 1/2 inch little tab or little fold here on the side. And pay attention when you're folding vellum. I scored it, and I wasn't looking at it because I was busy. Whatever I had on my screen that I was watching, I wasn't paying attention. And vellum is finicky. You know, you do. You gotta pay attention to it. So folded it properly, reinforced it with my Teflon bone folder. So now I have this panel with a 1/2 inch tab on the end, basically. So this time I'm paying attention. See, scored it, folded it, worked so much better. And then I have those other panels of cardstock that I cut to 5x7, and I'll get to those in a minute. You could also skip that step, but I'll explain. So I've got my vellum, and I'm going to add strong adhesive to this shorter tab, and I'm just going to use score tape. With this, you could use liquid adhesive. It's totally fine. But I just, old habits, and also this is just faster. So I put score tape on this shorter little piece. I'm going to take that off of there, and I'm going to adhere this to the card base. So the adhesive part is going to go on what is the back of the card. So you could just adhere this at like this. It'll be a trifold card, and it looks fine for the most part. Like, you can see the adhesive through that vellum on the very back, but it's not ugly. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's like, oh, ew, cover that adhesive. It just looks awful. This does look fine, but if you want to give it a completely finished look, I cut down these pieces of cardstock to 5x7, and I'm going to adhere them on the very back. So then that just makes it smooth and crisp, you know. Again, it's up to personal preference. With one like this, I honestly don't think it would look unfinished, you know. With other times with other things, it's just like, oh no, you know, it's worth the extra 2 minutes of effort to cover it up, whatever. But with this, yeah, once I fold it over the vellum, I'm like, honestly, you don't even really need to cover it. But since I'd already like gone this far, why not? So adhered the panel, the vellum panel, and then adhered the cardstock panel, just using the craft tacky glue, because that always gives me a minute or so of wiggle room to make sure things are lined up. So got that adhered, and now I've got a trifold card. So the first panel opens up, and then the vellum just kind of softens the sentiment that's stamped on the inside. So it's just a little extra, you know. If you wanted to get really fancy, you could use like one of Spellbinders. Oh, now I'm thinking, oh, man, like one of Spellbinders embossing folders, that would have looked amazing. See, a hindsight, always, anyway. These cards are done. The video's done. I'm not going back. But anyway, just there's ideas. So to adhere the die cut panel, I just put liquid glue on just the wide spots. I didn't cover the whole thing. Who has time for that? And that's all you need. All the large, thicker areas, I just had little dots of glue. I opened up the card completely on my work surface here, just in case I didn't want any glue to ooze out to like adhere to the vellum, etc. So I just folded the card flat like so, added my adhesive, and then you just kind of pick a point. So I just picked like the lower corner, and everything just lines up. So then I slap it into place, press it down, and then for my sentiments, this is the wonderful script sentiments die set from Spellbinders. I bought this. I forget when these came out. I think this is one of Yana's collections that I keep purchasing. Yana's another one that does amazing collections with Spellbinders. Love. Anyway, die cut the sentiment from matte gold cardstock, the outline from white cardstock, and then I used my little detail glue bottle. I'll have a link to that. It's just a Gina K. It's a set of 3 of empty bottles that I put craft tacky glue in, and I've been using this now for what's it been, a couple months at least. So far, so good. Like, even with craft tacky glue, which is thicker, it's been working in these bottles just fine. So another win. Anyway, I just used little dabs of that glue to adhere the sentiment to this background, because again, you don't need very much. And I just kind of lifted it up and would find, okay, here's a spot where the sentiment is actually touching the background, not through, because it's all the little openings. And I would just put a little dab of glue here, little dab of glue there, stick it down, find the next little spot. It's like, okay, at the bottom of that first L, stick a little dab of glue. Simple. So once I got those adhered, these cards are complete. This video is longer, but I think it was more just explain. But really, these look more involved and way more finicky than they actually were, which I love that. I love when things look like so detailed. As if I spent a month making them, but not even remotely. And they're fun. And they have the trifold with the see-through, in the front. The little vellum, panel just kind of softens it and gives it that little extra. And then the shimmer, sparkle, fabulousness. My inner magpie was very happy. So as always, like I said, I will have a link at the end of the video to the butterfly set and video that I had done whenever it was. And then of course I'll have links below the video to my blog post. I'll link to the products I showed at the beginning, all the supplies I used to make these cards. All of that will be in the description box below if any of you are interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps so very much. Plus I love interacting with you guys and reading all your comments. And subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.